The agenda today is, you already see line 1 there. We're going to give you the overview of the Electrify Efficiently webinar series. This is the second one in our series. We're very excited to deliver these for PG&E. We'll go over the disclaimer, and we're going to show you some awesome electric options for electric heating and water heating, various types of heat pumps, and then the most exciting part of this whole thing is I was able to pull in a favor and got Sean Armstrong to come on here with us. This is a big deal. He's going to share electric options and other appliances and just some really cool electric stuff.
You're flattering me. That's very nice, Larry. Looking forward to it.
Absolutely, Sean. You're one of my heroes, bud. I don't know if you guys were on the webinar 2 weeks ago. You probably, I'm going to breeze through this page, but I've been in the HVAC trade since 1982, probably before some of you were even born. Definitely, it was in the trade before the first cordless drill. I actually was a few years in before this amazing invention came out, and we didn't have to drag a 100-foot cord onto the roof to take things apart. I've been NATE certified since NATE certification started. At one time, I held 10 certifications. Now I just hold heat pump install and service. In 2009, 2010, went through the course through CBPCA to become BPI certified, and I've maintained that ever since. We do a lot of the building performance work around here. I've only been installing heat pumps since 2015. I kind of stumbled onto inverter heat pumps because I had to put something in a small place and hope it would work. And it worked so well that I got completely kind of spun out on the things. And my old boss before I started this company just wanted me to sell a furnace once in a while, but I couldn't do it. Once I figured out heat pumps were the way to go, been with it the whole time. In 2020, I started this company, Electrify My Home, because I wanted to have a place for people to go where they could actually talk about electrification and decarbonization to somebody that had an understanding of it. And so the name Electrify My Home seemed pretty simplistic at the time, and it's hard to confuse me for somebody that's going to install a furnace. We are a mission-driven company, and everything we do is revolves around reduction of carbon. Matter of fact, our entire process in our company where we engage our customers is all done virtually. And so we don't have to burn tire rubber and gasoline to get out to 5 customers' houses a day. We meet them right here on the computer screen where people are so familiar and comfortable nowadays. But our mission is to provide the most efficient, cost-effective electrification solutions, be a good steward of the electrical panel, and to train and influence other contractors to do the same. This is part of that training today, but we also have a really fun training program for Tech Clean California, where we go all over the state and we bring interested contractors in and we give them a 3-day immersion in everything electrification. So it's a really fun time to be doing this. Our 6-part webinar series, if you didn't get last week's, or excuse me, 2 weeks ago, those are available, they're recorded, and they're on the PG&E website. So if you'd like to see that, that was kind of a good one. Today is the Home Electrification Product Review. And we would like it if you would join us for the other ones. Next time we'll be talking about training programs and financing opportunities. 3.7 is a good one for you contractors, overcoming heat pump objections during the sales process with customers. And if you are a homeowner looking for a heat pump, it's a great one in there. It can answer a lot of your questions. Heat pumps done right, a case study is the 5th. And I should know how to operate the go-to webinar by the time we start the 6th one, the how and why of home performance for electrification. Our moniker is pretty easy, Electrify Efficiently. Our areas of focus are building electrification. We do retrofit and small new construction remodel work in ADUs and such. A lot of single family residences. Seems like we work on a lot of 100-year-old houses. We're working on more and more with drywall instead of lath and plaster, which is really nice. We do HVAC and water heating, all with heat pumps. We like to help people overcome the electrification barriers. We always offer approaches that optimize for comfort, efficiency, resilience, and lower operational cost. And through this course, all audiences will benefit, especially contractors and industry professionals. Before we get started, has anybody seen any of these? We just want to let you know that all the products and brands shown in this presentation for all the solutions, none of these guys are paying us to talk about these. We're going to share real world stuff with you. We don't recommend or not recommend any of the products we're going to show herein. So now my favorite subject, the heat pumps. Let's start with this, gas furnaces. Gas furnaces have been around for a long time. Since the 1800s, really, they were building some of these units you see on the left. That particular one right there it has an oil burner on it, but it was the oldest looking one we could find in the Google slides. But there's a lot of those in the Bay Area, just like that have gas burners in them. There's a lot of them still. And if you see the second one over, the big green monster there, we run into a lot of these. And as a matter of fact, that's one off of one of our projects from about a year ago. That particular system was about 150,000 BTUs. And if I remember right, we put somewhere in the neighborhood of 24,000 BTUs back into that house. Obviously, gravity systems like you see there were pretty inefficient, as they used the rising heat to deliver the heat into the house. And they really worked pretty good for their time. I mean, it was an amazing breakthrough. And then when they came out with one of those with a fan on it, man, that was a big deal. You see the third slide over? That's a circa 1980s ream furnace, big monster. Downflow, those people had the luxury of air conditioning, as you can see in the little coil underneath the furnace there. This is actually from a project that we will be doing next month in Davis, a really neat old house with this cool old equipment. And then you see the latest iteration now over on the right there is a 95% Bryant furnace, and that's actually a picture of a job for a customer that I had what we call happily involved in a furnace installation, probably about 10 to 12 years ago. That was when I was still engaging customers in a lot of gas furnaces, when gas furnaces were the most economical solution. And I feel like being the president of Electrify My Home and installing nothing but heat pumps, my karma is caught up about 50% for all those furnaces I sold over my career. So everything's evolving. Vehicles are evolving. We've seen a lot of cars on the road. Matter of fact, me and my son were taking a ride back from Sacramento the other day, and we decided to count all the electric cars. And we saw 20 electric cars between Roseville and Vacaville. And I think about 18 of them were Teslas, so it's almost an unfair count, but there's more and more everywhere you go. We did pull up to one stoplight, and there was 3 Tesla Model 3s at the stoplight in various directions. Strangely enough, all different colors. But cars are evolving, and so is heating and air conditioning. So we're at a time now where the technology this electric technology can be put into your old existing gas house. Typical heat pump configurations that we'll talk about today is unitary on the left and mini split platform there on the right. The unitary, what that means is these units can match up with multiple sizes and styles of coils and air handlers and furnaces and things like that. So you buy these units separately, you put them together, and you've taken a conglomeration of products, hopefully put it together in an AHRI rated combination, and then that's a unitary system. What we have on the side with the mini split platform is these do have different pieces and parts that can be used with them, but they're all matched. They have to communicate with each other, so they have to be matched with the exact piece on the inside. So these are a system more than a unitary. Another thing about unitary is generally it's going to run off of a traditional thermostat, and it's going to be controlled with low voltage control wiring and low voltage controls. That's not the case with most mini split platform technology. Most of that technology is completely communicating. In other words, the thermostat has a discussion with the system every time it makes a decision. And there's many points of data that are involved in every little adjustment with one of those systems. They're truly the smartest equipment out on the market. And one of the things that I love about them is they have the ability to immediately react to changes in the thermostat. So if you walk into your house and it's a little too cool or a little too warm, you can change that thermostat even while it's operating, and that unit will ramp up and take care of the load. So back in the old days when we used to tell our kids, don't touch the thermostat, don't turn it down to 54 because it's not going to cool any faster, those days are over with these systems. The typical indoor unit, sorry about that. The typical indoor unit classifications is we have conventional ducted, and then we have slim ducted. We use a lot of these two systems. You see the picture on the left over here, this wonderful piece of Bosch equipment. It's a very nice product, but that's a unitary solution. It uses low voltage control wiring to run it. It does have some variability with it, but the fan runs at one constant speed. It works way more like a traditional heat pump does. And then we have our ducted mini split options. These are a Mitsubishi product. These particular jobs are all of these are from our projects. And these are often used just to kind of replace a furnace in the location. As you can see, it's kind of sized like your furnace is. So it fits into those spaces really easily. And then really nice installations with that same type of unit horizontally mounted in an attic space. One thing you see that's common among all the systems that EMH installs is we put a really awesome MERV 13 filter on each one of our systems. So you can slam those windows shut and cool down the house in those smoke events and not worry about indoor air quality. And you can take advantage of the longer run times with these systems by pulling the air more slowly across these filters and really enhancing the quality. On the right-hand side here, you see a slim ducted version. The picture on the far right here, this is really what these look like. This is one that's mounted underneath a crawl space in Oakland. And this very small unit, this is only 8 inches tall, 24 inches wide, and 30 inches the other way. And it does the same job this does. So almost for similar efficiencies as well. Some of these slim ducted units can actually be installed vertically. Not every model can do that because it does, take a different type of drain that allows the condensation to leave off in two ways. But we can take a little alcove like we did in this house and use that space to put a system in. You see this particular one has all the ducts inside the envelope. And I will just say as a disclaimer that this is a picture of a project. This particular picture was installed by the company I worked at before. We did a lot of cool stuff there too. And then we have the ductless heads. These are a hard sell right here. I don't know, we do put these in once in a while, but most of the time we're doing them if there's a separate climate zone in the house and we want to do a basement room or maybe a great room upstairs and take care of our one single room load with these. They do have the option to do multiple rooms. We'll talk about that in a minute. And then we have the ceiling cassette. This unit draws the air up the center and distributes it in 4 different directions. If you only want it to go in 3 different directions, you can inhibit the airflow in either one of these sides and get 3 directional air. These things are pretty big. This is like a 30-inch cube. So it is noticeable in the ceiling, but hey, it's not right on the wall. This is what they call a low wall or a floor mount. This system is much like an old radiator or a conventional console heater. It can take the same spot. It does take up a little bit of real estate in the room, but this is a nice solution if we're coming up from underneath with the piping, or we need to not put it on an outside wall so we can run everything through the bottom. This type of unit here, the heads, these are really going to be dictated on where we can install them is going to be very critical. And this is a cool thing that's come out in the last 5 or so years. This is a single direction ceiling cassette, and these come in a much smaller capacity than the traditional old square ceiling cassettes. And these we can put on one end of the room, and it pulls the return here, and it has one supply register that blows the air along the ceiling. And these can be individual or multi-zonal. So what is an inverter? We talked about inverters here. All of these technologies here are all inverter technologies. So what is an inverter? Well, a traditional heat pump, and you're hearing from a guy today that's been in the trade for about 40 years. And I lived up in the mountain region. I lived up in Redding for a number of years, and we worked on a lot of heat pumps up there. And as a young service technician, I absolutely despised heat pumps. They were difficult to work on. They had 14 wires that needed to be connected to make them do what they needed to do. The guy before you never connected them right. And as soon as it got below 41 degrees outside, the customers were calling, wondering why, number one, either my utility bills have gone through the roof if they had a strip heater backup, or it's freezing in my house because they don't have a strip heater backup. The solutions just weren't great back then for heat pumps, but the technology was emerging and getting better. But this is kind of the expected operation of any of these systems. You have a 75-degree set point, it's 80 degrees in the house, you turn that unit on, it runs at one speed. It cools the house down as quickly as it can at that one speed. This is going to depend on the outdoor ambient and some other conditions, how quickly this happens. And it always kind of shoots beyond the comfort temperature. Then it shuts off, and it lets all the energy come back into the house and takes it all out again. So basically what this is doing is a seesaw effect. It's gets the air nice and cool, shuts off, the heat from the house gets into the air, the unit comes back on, it does this, and they never really run long enough to actually condition or provide real comfort. That's why for ultimate energy efficiency, comfort, and just customer satisfaction, we love the inverter-driven compressors. So the inverter-driven compressors are a little bit different. That inverter part of that is actually, it takes the power from the wall and converts it to a different source of power inside the unit. It inverts it to like a hybrid 3-phase power. That allows it to operate out of the normal 60 hertz power range. So you can see when you turn that on 80 degrees to 75, it has the external capacity to ramp up and take care of that differential temperature pretty quickly, and actually operate outside that 60 hertz range to get that done. Once we get down to here and we see the little hills here, what's going on here is this is tempering your house. So once the air temperature is brought down and the heat is released from everything in your house over time, this unit is just going to make small incremental changes in the capacity to get everything saturated. This is what we call the tempering phase. And you see where the line smooths out here. This is very important when an inverter system is installed properly and picked out properly for your application. We want to make sure that the lowest operating range of that unit is nice and low. And that's where we get this thermal equilibrium point. Once the house reaches thermal equilibrium and everything in the house is the same temperature, your unit can slow way down and your house starts acting as a thermal battery, and all we just need is a trickle charger to keep it going. That's the most efficient way to run these systems. In fact, some of the systems we install, you can run here for 5 hours using the same amount of power you use here for 1 hour. So really, really cool technology, but it has to be installed and designed right to get that type of effect. There's a couple of different types of inverters. The new one to the market the last few years, and you'll see it, is, and I'll just use the Bosch as an example. It's a very, very nice unit. That inverter works off of the temperature of the indoor coil. In other words, the air passing from your house goes through the coil. The coil temperature is set by the refrigerant going through, and it has a sensor on there that can automatically adjust to the load. So as your house gets a little cooler, the load on the coil reduces, so the system slows down. So there's not a way for you to make an adjustment mid-cycle or anything on that type of system. The mini split based unit is a little bit more efficient, does give you some more flexibility. Both of these are going to really deliver great efficiencies. The mini split stuff is their efficiencies are based on what they call their nominal output. And usually the mini split based equipment can operate well beyond the nominal rated capacity and well below the nominal rated capacity. The controller is usually a manufacturer's communicating controller that adjusts the output based on the control setting and a conversation that happens between all the equipment whenever something changes. These type of systems have up to 700 points of communication. They don't have a fixed airspeed when used in the automatic mode. The airspeed will automatically regulate with the load. And then the communication is happening in all of the components. The outside unit, the air handling unit, and the controller are all continuously having a conversation about small adjustments that need to be made. The power on these units, we love these units, going back to our mission statement of being a good steward of the electrical panel. The majority of this type of system only requires one double pole breaker to run the outdoor unit, and then the outdoor unit runs the indoor unit. So it's very good at conserving breaker space and also much smaller breaker loads as well. And then the capacity on these units is sometimes as low as 20%, all the way up to 130%. The temperature sensing pressure-based inverters, they're good units, and they have great efficiencies. They do work off of a traditional on and off thermostat. The downside of that is you can't make an adjustment during a cycle and have it affect anything. It has to finish its cycle, start up again, and realize you set the thermostat lower. It doesn't respond to, or excuse me, the compressor speed is always based on the coil temperature. The airspeed is always the same. Most of these units have ECM motors and they run at one speed. The air handler control requires its own 230-volt circuit, and the capacity is adjustable based on the settings. So generally these units are going to come with two SKUs. There's a 2 and 3 ton unit and a 4 and 5 ton unit, and there's a switch that you flip in there to tell it what capacity you want it to operate at. Really cool technology, really young in the marketplace, but doesn't have all of the kind of advanced features of complete communicating systems. Advantages of the mini split and multi splits: large operating capacity, really quiet. They're slim, so they'll fit anywhere. Low static pressure for small applications, and mid static pressure for larger applications when we maybe want to reuse some ductwork. So we use these options often. Mini split heat pumps, ductless versus ducted. The ductless advantages to these are, if you're doing a single zone, one room, you can get these units with amazing efficiencies, like 35 SEER, just crazy numbers. There's lots of configurations and styles like we talked about early, and these are really good for 1 to 3 room options, but better when we're using one outdoor unit with one indoor unit. The downside to that, especially this model here, is the location is really going to be based on water needs to drain out of these in the summer. So we need to put it in a place where there's going to be a natural waterfall. The natural drain is going to take the water out. So usually on an outside wall. They're a little bit more difficult to service because trying to get in there is kind of a pain sometimes. And they're hard to sell to the wives. I'm just going to come right out. A lot of the ladies of the house don't want this on the wall. Most of the guys are cool with it because we just like comfort, sounds good. But if there's any kind of decorating going on in the house, that might be an uphill battle. There's also multi-zone systems with one outdoor unit that can run multiples of these different head varieties. These are nice if there's a house that has multiple climate zones inside and we're trying to attack that. There are some downsides to these. They need a lot more refrigerant. Things are hyper concentration on the refrigerant these days. These units take a lot more refrigerant. And because there's a set of pipes that connect each one of these units to the outdoor units, there's way more chance for leakage. The units have to combine the capacity of all of these in the outdoor unit, so there's a bit of an energy use penalty. And then there's a weird thing that happens with these. If you have one of these units and you have multiple heads in the house and you just want to run one small bedroom head, if the capacity of that head is smaller than the minimum ramping capacity of this unit, it will send warm refrigerant to the other heads and cause unwanted heating in certain areas. and oftentimes they won't regulate down. So you're going to get full blast, full capacity when running one zone. That can be problematic. This is our favorite, single zone ducted. We can use a really small unit and do a whole house virtually. The smaller the units on these, the more efficient they are. We often put in just 18,000 BTU units for houses all the way up to 1,300 square feet. They're super quiet. We can tuck them away almost anywhere. They're very discreet. And it really presents like central forced air. And we use the right registers and design and all that, so we get really, really good efficiency and comfort out of these. The disadvantages, they have to be installed a little bit better, and you need to do a load calc for the best results on these and use the correct registers. Here's another one, is backup resistance heat. So a lot of people we talk to, even people that call a company asking for a heat pump, are getting this like hybrid heat solution. And you know, if you're decarbonizing, why would somebody want to put in a furnace as a backup heating source, especially if there's the equipment available that maybe that contractor doesn't know about? So be careful when you're talking about these. They're in most of the climates in California, they're not really necessary if you put the right heat pump technology in. But this is a hybrid system. They've been selling these for a while. Basically, the way it works is the heat pump operates till about 41 degrees outside. It stops operating and the furnace starts running. Or when the heat pump goes into its defrost mode, the furnace will come on to kind of keep the air tempered a little bit. With the mini split technology, you don't need to worry about any of that, including any kind of backup heat. Another thing that they use is resistance backup heat. So when it gets below 41 degrees, these toaster elements come on and start helping the unit warm the air. And that just uses a ton of energy. So we want to be choosing the right, most efficient energy solution on these. Air to water heat pumps for hydronic fan coils or radiant heat. These are becoming more popular, and they work pretty good because you can actually get some of these that will heat your water and your home at the same time, and they will also cool your home in the summer. They're a bit more complicated. There's a lot of plumbing involved. There's no refrigerant in the connecting lines from the indoors to the outdoors, which is nice, but there is water. And although refrigerant is pretty nasty gas, if you have a water leak in your house, it's going to be way worse than having a refrigerant leak somewhere in the system. But very good technology here. These are also inverter technology, so they speed up and slow down and give you exactly what you need. But most of these are going to need a storage tank in most applications. Then we have geothermal. Not a lot of geothermal in California. We really don't have the climate for it. The systems are pretty expensive to install, and if you got a big piece of property out in the country or something, geothermal might pan out for you. But really, we have simpler and more efficient options at a much lower price than this. But when we get into snow country where it gets really cold and regular heat pumps suffer, geothermal heat pumps are awesome, because you know, at this substrate of ground, even when there's snow on the ground, we go down deep enough, that temperature is always the same. But you have to have the correct substrate. Like drill into rock. Well, we can go into that in a different show. Air source and ground source heat pumps for radiant floors. This is a new thing we've just been like looking into recently, and we were fortunate enough to be at a forum this last week with some really smart people that are installing systems like this. These are expensive to install, but very nice. And so it always was, I want warm floors in my house. We always had to do it with a boiler. Now there's great heat pump solutions to do that. And there's also, a lot of these systems can cool the floor as well. But you have to be really, really well in your design, because you can't let that floor go below dew point, or maybe you could imagine your whole floor condensating. And this is happening a lot more as well. Retrofitting heat pumps into hydronic homes. We just looked at a project on this a couple of weeks ago that I happily handed off to a very, very good plumber. But old boilers typically run, the one we were looking at the other day was 113,000 BTUs, and we really don't have heat pumps that operate at that BTU range. So the strategy was to use a very large storage tank, keep that up to temperature so that it could saturate the hydronic fields in the house. This is a neat solution. but costly if you're building it in to begin with. And you really got to go with somebody who knows this product line for this to work out well. So if you call me for one of these, I'm probably going to say I can't do that for you. Then we have these great, what we call VRF systems. This is called a variable refrigerant flow system, and they work differently than a mini split in a couple of different ways. These can do multiple zones. You can do up to 10 zones with one of these units with either wall heads, ducted units, fan coils, whatever you want to do. And these units have the ability to ramp far down below a normal ramping distance by bypassing internally. So you can have a larger system like this run and only run one zone in your house and have it actually modulate. It's pretty cool. And then this one doesn't leak unintended warm refrigerant into the other heads. It bypasses internally. These also have the ability to run just 2 pipes out of this unit and branch off and daisy chain all the piping through the house. The only downside is we have to run additional electrical to every one of the inside units, and there has to be a communication chain drawn up on this. But what incredible technology this stuff is. Electric water heating products. We love water heating products. My name is Waters, by the way. I'm going to give you some alternatives. We told you we'd give you alternatives to electric water heating. Here's a very clever one. Not looking for a good way to mass produce this. Not a fan of this one because it still uses combustion. And you know, we get pretty clever when we don't have any hot water at the house. But I wouldn't suggest anybody trying any of these mad scientist approaches. But a regular heat pump water heater is a good solution. How do these work? We talk about heat pump water heaters working much like a refrigerator works, but instead of drawing heat out of the leftovers and putting it out on the kitchen floor, we're actually drawing heat out of the ambient air coming into the system. And it doesn't matter how cold this air is. I have one of these units in my garage, and I'll point out which one it is in a minute, but it gets pretty cold. Sometimes the garage is around 40 degrees, just kind of the ambient outside is way lower than that. And it pulls that ambient air in, and this unit operates at enough of a pressure differential that it can actually pull heat out of extremely cold air. It embeds that heat into the refrigerant and then takes it down and displaces it into the water. Most of these hybrid heat pump systems also are going to have a secondary heating element or 2 in them, so that just in case it does get too cold or the cycles are too long, they have some intelligent operating system in there that will bring on those auxiliary heaters to reduce runtime. And if you want to, on a lot of these systems, if you want to just get the water coming out as fast as you can when all the neighbors or excuse me, all the in-laws are coming out for Christmas and hanging out for way longer than they should be, you can put this thing on fast recovery mode, and it'll heat the water up as quickly as possible between empties. Several brands here. We have the 2 on the left here. These are both from the Rude Ream manufacturing line. This one all the way over on the left, this is the kind of the newest of their lineup. This is the 110 volt plug-in. That's an actual 110 volt 3-prong plug right there. This model does not have secondary heating elements. This happens to be the one I have in my garage in a 66-gallon model. What we have here is a built-in mixing valve system. So we're able to run this tank up to a much hotter temperature and then mix the water temperature down here so we get nice, comfortable water in the house, but we have a lot of extra stored water. Now, my unit I installed this last fall. Right before my daughter's birthday, we had a bunch of in-laws at the house for about a week and a half, and it never missed a beat. I was never without hot water with 7 people taking showers. It was quite good. We did have one little episode with it about a month ago where it gave a little bit of lukewarm water, but it was at the point where the bathtub was filled up enough for my wife. We'd done laundry all day, and then my 16-year-old son got a shower in before she got in the tub, and there was a little bit of lukewarm water then, but other than that, it has never skipped a beat. I was monitoring the energy use on this unit yesterday. It was using about 275 watts. It does run for 4 to 5 hours a day, but if you do the math in your head, That's about $300 a year, about 900 kilowatt hours a year for that unit. This is the same manufacturer. This one does have this is the hybrid model. It does have the electric heaters built into it. All of these have different configurations. You see here on the front, the fan comes kind of out the front right side on these. This particular model is a Bradford White. The fan comes out the back corner, which can be a little bit of a problem if we're sticking it in a closet. Something of note here, these units are going to require plumbing, warm on the top, cold on the bottom. This particular unit has the water that loads in like a traditional water heater, cold and hot on the top. The A.O. Smith unit is a new one on the market. It can be pumped side, or it could be watered side to side or through the top. Great systems, a lot of opportunities, and we've had the pleasure to install all of these different models. Now, you have to have a trained installer on this, not recommended for DIY. If you look at all the little pieces and parts and connections on this thing, you have to be pretty confident in your DIY abilities to put one of these things in and not have it be problematic. Last year, we got at least a couple of calls from people that bought these from the big box store and wanted someone else to install them. And you know, we have to install them ourselves. If you're looking for quiet, all those units do make a sound. There is an option for a super quiet system called the Sanco 2. This unit has some great features to it. One of the best is it uses CO2 as the refrigerant. It heats 115 gallons of hot water, recovery time on an 83-gallon tank system at 145 degrees. It's extremely quiet, and the noisemaker is outside. The downside is it costs a little bit more and takes longer to install. Electric tankless, you can't get a big enough electric tankless water heater in California to serve a comfortable shower with cold water coming in. If you can see, this system here has 3 heaters built into it. There's all these wire connections. This particular one needs 3 40-amp breakers to heat water up. If you can think of how quickly it needs to heat 50-degree water up to 120, uses a lot of power. Electric panels. Solutions to full panels. We run into full panel problems all the time. Some of the solutions are put a quad breaker in, a great circuit splitter. These devices allow us to use a single circuit for multiple units. This particular one is dryer on one side, heat pump water heater on the other, or split a car charger into 2 car chargers. Pretty cool thing. The other thing is add a sub panel. We do this quite often to bring more power in. Or you can do a smart panel. There's some great smart panels on the market right now. Span is what we call a smart panel with dumb breakers, and the Leviton is a dumb panel with smart breakers. They're both very good. You can monitor your sub-circuit monitoring and know right where you're at. This particular model will actually shed some of its load when it gets too close to the maximum capacity of the panel. Sub-circuit energy monitoring. I imagine all you guys out here, some of you might have this. Anybody that would want to listen to me for an hour probably is a little bit of a nerd. So we install a lot of these Emporia systems. They're really good for sub-circuit monitoring. There's a lot of choices out there that are really great. So part 2, other electrification products. This is where I hand this off to Sean. He's going to show us some really incredible stuff, and take it from here, Sean.
Hey, that was great, Larry. I learned a bunch. Thank you.
Sean, I made you the presenter. There you go.
And let's see. Now you're seeing that. I'll make it full screen. Great. Okay, and
All
away
set.
we go. Thank you, Javier. Okay, my quick introduction. Hey, I started studying how to put renewable energy into homes in 1995, so it predated the modern electrification movement, but it gave me all the intellectual tools I needed. So since about 1995, I've been thinking about how to do just clean energy in homes. I was a high school science teacher for a few years and enjoyed putting the solar panels up on the high school and realized that was kind of more my calling. And so went into affordable housing development in 2005. started a company called Danco Communities that still does all electric, 100% solar powered affordable housing. Very pleased about that. I got to be the founding project manager, wrote all the grants. And then in 2011 till today, I've been consulting to affordable housing developers, and you can see some of these fun projects here. The best one on the bottom, that has a 9-story tall PV wall that's facing the Washington, D.C. Beltway. So it's like a sort of a spectacular affordable housing development being done by the Montgomery County Housing Authority. And the lower left-hand corner, that's my house. Pretty little old 100-year-old farmhouse that we electrified and completed in 2017, right after my mother-in-law died in the 2017 Tubbs fire. So while I'd been consulting in all electric for 6 years, 7 years at that point, I still had a gas stove, and that was definitely the inspiration to stop using fossil fuels in my house. Having someone die in one of those climate change fires makes you think about things much more carefully. So speaking of stoves, I was going to talk about the fact that today in the United States, 60% of stoves are electric. In California, we are upside down and backwards on this. We are not even similar to the neighboring states. Like California is 8% all electric construction, and Arizona, neighboring state, is 40%, or Oregon up above us, 34%. Even Nevada is 16% and we're 18%, so they're twice as good. So we are frequently unaware of the fact that most of the rest of the country cooks on electric stoves. So on the left-hand side are the ones that are smooth top with an electric resistance element underneath the glass, and that's easy to clean, but still kind of slow, but not expensive. They're $500, $600 stoves. On the right-hand side, the copper coils, well, on the left-hand side, those are steel coils. On the right-hand side, those are copper coils, and you run electricity through the coil, and it makes a magnetic field around it, and then you put a pan on top of it that can interact with magnets. So some ferrous metal, like a cast iron pan, or standard all-clad pans, they've got a little bit of ferrous metal in them, like stainless steel. Anyway, the magnetic field pushes electrons, or tries to push electrons in this ferrous metal that it can interact with. These magnetic fields interact with ferrous metal, and they try to make the electrons move, and they can't. So the resistance makes heat. And that's how you have essentially an electric resistance heater, is the pan, as opposed to the other way of heating a coil with electric resistance and then having heat come off of it and have that heat heat the pan. So this is more like just directly heating the pan with a field. So it's very safe, can't burn you, doesn't interact with your body. It's just like radio waves don't interact with your body, and we're all fine with having radios. This is actually a bigger wave than radio waves, so it's even less able to bump into one of your atoms. Just huge, loose waves that don't interact with you. So very safe devices. I'm going to show you some pricing. If you're at the low-cost, smooth top electric resistance, these are the ones that I see in affordable housing day in and day out. They're about $500. Then you go to induction, which starts at about $1,000, and you should always be careful of the least expensive product in a market, because it's going to have the smallest induction coils. Will only be like 5 inches instead of like 8 inches or 9 inches. The cheaper ones have smaller, noisier, less durable components. So you might invest in like a $1,300 one instead of a $1,000 one, or a $1,500 or $1,900, or you get to choose your price point. And the Inflation Reduction Act, when it gets implemented towards the end of this year, the rebates will be $870 to buy an induction stove, so you can get about half off. And of course, the pricing goes from $1,000 up to almost infinity. Down here on the bottom, you can see an AGA Classic is $22,000. And they make gas versions that are just the same price. This is just what it costs to get these luxury retrofit with tons of burners and fancy ovens and beautiful enamel work and such. So just wanted to let you know, induction exists at every scale in the price point, down to about $1,000. Taylor Swift cooks on induction. Here I was enjoying watching You Belong to Me, her version, and she's dancing around a kitchen. I was like, oh, look at that, she cooks on induction. I took a little screen capture. These are the countertop types. So down below you can see you can get 5 burners of induction for $900, up to, you know, multiple thousands of dollars depending upon the quality and the brand and the blah blah blah. So, but the upshot of it is that they get plugged into the countertop. They're smooth. You've seen them before. The reason why, if you have been following the news at all, then you've seen in the last few weeks and just an explosion of news articles about stoves. And I wanted to help illustrate why this is coming forward, like with pictures. So on the left-hand side, that's Becca, my staff person, and you can see clouds of methane combustion coming off of the burner. In the real world, that actual burner is just like a little tiny flame. So what you're seeing is an infrared image of all of the smoke that's coming off, that's red hot or white hot, then red hot, then purple hot, and then there's these puffs of kind of blue hot smoke. So it's essentially a campfire that you have going there. You've cooked on campfires in your life, right? You realize how much fire and smoke it takes to cook a hot dog or boil a pot of water, etc. That's how much is on your stove. It's creating just as much smoke. It's just invisible smoke, but it is detectable smoke. If you have smog meters, on the right-hand side, you can see that when you use smog meters, nitrogen dioxide metering equipment, on the right-hand side, that's the regulations is that dotted line of 100 parts per billion outside. So all the nation's gas power plants are held to that standard. All of our nation's highways. Essentially, you cannot pollute more than 100 ppb before the regulations come in. And it's essentially applied to gas power plants, just huge gas burners. So everywhere in the country, every single county, everyone is in compliance with that federal standard. On the left-hand side, you can see that anyone who's got a gas stove in their house is not in compliance with that federal standard inside their home. Their air is dirtier than if they're standing next to a gas power plant. So in green, you can see the amount of pollution that's created by the burning of the oils in your food. So that's like 15 to 60 parts per billion of nitrogen dioxide, which is a lung irritant and a cancer agent. It also causes premature births, causes all sorts of medical ailments. It's a terrible gas for your body. It's poison. So if you're cleaning the oven, like just cranking the oven up and burning off all the stuff in the oven, then you can make 30 to 7 ppb, and that's a very rare thing for people to do. And that crazy thing is not as bad as just cooking a dish on a gas stove, which creates up to 190 parts per billion. That's 90 past the federal threshold. Cooking a full meal, you're definitely, for sure, if you're cooking a meal on a gas stove, you've polluted your home more than would be safe next to a power plant, and it goes all the way up. So that's why studies since 1995 have consistently found that having a gas stove had the same health harms to the family members as if someone was sitting in the living room smoking a pack or 2 of cigarettes a day. And you could think of each time you use a stove, because people usually cook twice a day on a stove, each one is about a pack of cigarettes of smoke that you add to a house. You can't see it, you can't smell it, it's absolutely there. That's why we take these infrared photos so you can see the smoke coming off, right? And it goes right into your face, and the formaldehyde that's a part of it, which is heavier than air, gathers around your feet. So that's why babies and pets are endangered by gas stoves, because that is a very poisonous gas and it's a lung irritant, and it can cause cancer, of course. So it is, gas stoves are dangerous. It just straight up, and hoods don't work. None of the hoods that have been tested succeed in getting maybe more than 30% of it out. So just so you know, that's why people are saying they're like cigarette smokes, because every study since 1995 has said, yeah, same health impact for asthma, heart attacks, all the rest of it. Now, if you're going outside and you're thinking, well, I could just burn on propane, right? That's okay, but I get headaches when I go to parties because I'm 6'3". So these are electric people warmers. And then down below, these are electric barbecues. Weber has the best reputation, unsurprisingly, but there's all these different ones. They're all fancier, more or less. You know, you really can't have barbecue on a boat that's got any open flame. So barbecues on boats are electric. So if you're living the high life out on your own boat, you're electric barbecuing. That's part of, you know, the great pleasure of sea life. Then here's fire imitators. These are mist-based fireplaces. So they have an ultrasound that makes mist come up, and then they light it with either LEDs or halogen lights. and it looks just like flame. Sometimes I have my little fireplace going behind me, but I've moved my tiny office because of the earthquake, which kind of wrecked my other office, and yada yada. So here I am. I don't have my fireplace to show you, but on the left lower hand corner, it looks just like that. Full on like flames. You can watch it. It's mesmerizing. It's beautiful. They come with heaters, so you get the same heating experience you get from a fireplace. They come in gigantic commercial versions and tiny little campfires. Ones that are like this Dimplex here, you can put this on a table. This is like flames that you can put your hands into while you're drinking wine, and it can have a heater and it still won't burn you. So you can have a really fun, luxurious life with electric flames, so to speak. Oh, I should have stuck. Oh, I'm sorry. I'm moving into dryers now. That's what's going on. I was thinking, oh, did I miss it? Nope. Here we go. So I want to talk about dryers. When Larry was talking about essentially like power efficiency and power managing panels, and there's a lot of technologies that you can add to try to reduce power demand, which is great because if you have less power for your dryer, then you can have the same amount of power can go into your car charger without needing a whole new wire from utility, a service upgrade. So on the left-hand side, this is what an electric resistance dryer uses. And this one is an example of a hybrid heat pump, but it's still an electric resistance dryer. It still uses a 30 amp 240 volt plug. And then I'm going to show some explanations like, well, then there's heat pumps. And if it doesn't have electric resistance backup, then it's using 1800 watts at peak. And the condensing washer dryers, the condensing dryers, they use 1400 at peak. And they go a little bit slower to get the job done. But the average is 2 hours of time in between a washer and dryer load, so there's lots of wasted time. And if you just have a machine wash and dry, even if it's slower, it still gets faster, done faster than the other way. So I want to show how dryers, if you have a different dryer selection, ones that use less power, you can plug in your EV without any fancy new wiring and get 30 miles per hour of charging, so it's level 2, 30 amps. So if you are using an electric condensing dryer, everyone knows what electric resistance is, right? It's a hot element that heats things up. A condensing dryer is an electric resistance dryer. So you can see these heating elements here, that's electric resistance, and it puts heat into this dryer, but then something different happens. As the air leaves, instead of it going outside, like with electric resistance dryers, there's a duct and it blows air outside. Instead of that, it goes into a whole bunch of metal like fins that condense the water. They're just room temperature. They're not like chilled pieces of metal, which is what a heat pump dryer does. I'll show you in a second. But this one is just room temperature, and it condenses water just like a window condenses water on a cold night. And the condensate goes out a drain. And it does this of heating the air, but not having it vent out, which preserves some of the heat. So it's more efficient than just a standard electric resistance dryer. It is more efficient, not a whole lot more, because it's a kind of electric resistance dryer. But the way that it doesn't expel the heat out conserves energy. This is what they look like. This is the most popular machine in the world. Everywhere else in the world, people use combined condensing washer dryers. The washer is a normal washer, but it usually has a much faster spin cycle to dry the water out more, because that's the most energy efficient way of getting rid of water, is to spin it out. Boiling it, essentially, when you vaporize it, boiling it is way more energy intensive. So a smaller one, like I said, this is the most popular machine in the world. If you go appliance shopping in other countries, you don't even see electric resistance dryers frequently. They just sell condensing washer dryers, and I love them. I have this one on the right-hand side because I've got a family, kind of big, bunch of us, 6 people total, including my mom. But still, it's a lot. So this is a bigger machine, 4.5 cubic feet. Condensing washer dryer, washes and dries. Tons of people love it. I love it too. I want to put it in front of you because it can plug into any outlet. So if you're going from a gas dryer to an electric dryer, sometimes you'd have to put in a new plug, and this can plug into any 120 volt outlet that's around. So you don't have to do any new rewiring, and you get an excellent machine. Now, I just want to point out though, that the most efficient condensing dryer, which is here the combined energy factor of 2.68, that's the higher the number, the better. So that's the most efficient condensing dryer, is less efficient than a very inefficient heat pump dryer. So when you're looking over the side, it's a 3.0 versus 2.68. And it can be more exaggerated when you're looking at like this heat pump dryer. Its CEF is a 10.14, not a 3. So it's using essentially, less than a third as much energy to do the drying as this previous model I just showed you. So if you're trying to conserve energy, the heat pump dryer uses significantly less energy. If you're trying to preserve like instantaneous power on the grid or your electrical service or avoid rewiring, it might be easier and better to go to a condensing washer dryer, because lots of the heat pump dryers are not 120 volt and you need to do special wiring for them. They're 240 volt. Now, this one is an amazing hybrid that just came out, like it just got announced a few days ago. It's not even for sale yet. It goes on for sale this summer, but General Electric is leading the industry into the future. And they have a heat pump combined washer dryer. Never been done before. People have done condensing combined washers and dryers. So it's a washing machine with electric resistance element that heats up the water. Well, a heat pump is different because it chills the coils. It runs really cold refrigerant into that metal where the water vapor is running through to extract more water from it. And that is a more efficient way of getting water out of clothing, using less energy. So what GE is doing is recognizing that most of the world would like to have one box, one machine do both washing and drying. And they say, we acknowledge that. We know the whole rest of the world does this. One box does both. And we're going to do the efficient version of it now. First in the country, first in the world, a heat pump combined machine. And that's going to be $2,900. So they're not coming out with like a cheap model. Other ones like, the LG, the best one that I was showing you before, the biggest one, that's like $1,800. And it's also washing and drying. So I'm not trying to say this is the most cost-effective choice. I just want you to be aware of like, this is what the march towards greater efficiency looks like. And ask the question, but does it save money to buy a combined washer dryer? Like how much money are we talking? So on the left-hand side in blue is the pricing from $800 to $1,800 for combination washer dryers. In the middle, just a dryer, doesn't have the washer in it. Just the dryer starts at about $1,100 and goes up closer to $2,000. And just a condensing dryer, not combined, just a condensing dryer starts at $800 and goes up to $1,400. So if you're trying to get a washer and a dryer done, you can see that in blue, that combines both those functions and you get the efficiency. And that's how the rest of the world is making up their mind. It's like, oh, just one box, just do a little work inside of that box and you save a bunch of money getting both washing and drying done. Now, I'm going to move on to some more fun stuff. We've gone through outside heating and stoves and dryers and some of the other fun things that happen in your house. Just to note, the water heater and the space heating system, those two use somewhere between 80 and 90% of the gas in your house. So those are the big ones. But if you leave a gas connection to your house, then you have a methane leak called the pressure regulator valve. So I'm trying to lead you through the ways that you can get rid of all the other gas loads in your house, even if they're small, so that you can stop being associated with the real problem, which is methane leakage. 40% of climate change is leaked methane. And all of us who are hooked up to the grid are participating in somewhere between a 3 and 10% leakage rate from the gas delivered to our house, which is far more climate change than burning the gas that actually gets to your house. It's somewhere in the range of 2 to 5 times more climate change being caused by the leakage associated with your gas. So you really need to get rid of all gas devices to get rid of the leakage, stop participating in that system. Maintaining any gas loads, then you have the same leakage as anyone who's using more gas because the leakage is a constant. Okay, so that's my big pitch as to why you should think about these other things here. But now I'm going to go into resiliency. People are often thinking, well, if I get an all-electric house, does that make it so that I have problems when the power goes out? And say no. It means you've got a solution, because many of these gas devices need electricity anyway, like your furnace or your water heater or your dryer. And frequently your stove needs to be electrically ignited. And if you try to light it yourself, you might literally blow yourself up. Not safe to try to light things that require electric ignition. So if you plug your vehicle into your house, which the F-150 is now offering as a standard package for $5,000, an F-150 has 10 Tesla Powerwalls of battery in it. Tesla Powerwall is like 15 grand to install. This, in sense, works out to being a half or a third as much expense for the battery that you get. If you just buy a vehicle, buy a Kia, buy a Nissan, so GM and Ford, they just announced a couple weeks ago that they were going to try and make all of their electric vehicles that they're coming out with, which is dozens of models. They have announced all of them being able to do vehicle to building backup, so that you can get 5 Tesla Powerwalls or 10 Tesla Powerwalls on wheels by your car and just charge your house when the power's out. Or sell a little bit of electricity into the grid when there's like grid maximums, just like 10 miles worth of driving or even 30 miles worth of driving. You sell that into the grid and you can make a lot of money during the summertime, enough to actually literally get rid of your utility bill for the whole month. That's how much money is available in those evening peak hours if you sell into the grid. So the products to be aware of: Enphase, they're a leading microinverter and solar panel and batteries and such. Enphase is a big deal company in home solar, and they, a couple days ago, announced that they're coming out with their car charger that powers the house and can power the grid. That's awesome. Wallbox has announced that they're coming out with theirs this year. They've been saying it for a couple of years, but COVID slowed everyone down. Asiaco, Larry and I, we're going to be helping install the first Asiaco Decibel out of Canada into a project that we're sharing right now. So that is, once again, a solar inverter and a car charger and powers your house, bidirectional, they're called. And Nuvve has been on the market for a while now with their solution for school buses, where the electric school buses that are going in all over our country can also now power the school as a resiliency hub. Like when there's fires or earthquakes or terrible things happen and you go to the school, now they'll be able to use the school buses as gigantic generators. And if they have these solar arrays on the schools, then they can also power the buses and create essentially a localized microgrid with school buses and these Nuvve bidirectional chargers and a solar array. So we're getting close to like breakthrough solutions that make everything better, including things you traditionally had as gas loads. Now you'd have electric backup and solar array backup. All right, now we're going to move into some more of the other recreational vehicles. This is an electric snowmobile, as you can see. Tega has taken the lead on this. This is as fast as a Tesla. It can go 0 to 60 in under 3 seconds. So whip your neck back, hold on tight. So, and they're silent. I'm from Wisconsin. Snowmobiles are part of life where I'm from, and they are incredibly noisy. They suck. They're like 80 to 100 decibels, incredibly loud to be around. No fun even to ride them. All the wildlife gets chased away. And so now they're leading Northern Lights nighttime tours in Norway and Northern Alaska with these silent snowmobiles, and they're coming right up on herds of caribou. And they're not even scaring the caribou away. All it is just the crunching of snow, no noise, and Northern Lights going on. Similarly, jet skis are a ton of fun. Tega is also making them essentially the same housing as their snowmobiles. And these things go super fast and silent. And so they don't leak gas all over the place like the motored ones. They're always leaving behind a rainbow sheen everywhere they go. They're disgusting and noisy. And so like you're swimming in the water in like some warm Midwestern pond or lake, and there's like oil everywhere and noise and obnoxiousness. And it's like, can't you guys have fun without making it unfun for everyone else? So here you have the fun version, totally silent. It's a party, 2 people fit on it. You're racing across the water. Being from rural Wisconsin, I wanted to pull this forward for you, which is that, when you go out to hunt deer, sometimes the deer kill you, because when you try to drag out a dead deer and you're like a middle-aged Wisconsin farmer, you might have a heart attack. Like eating all the dairy of the Midwest is not good for your arteries. So now they're making electric bicycles with deer trailers on the back, so you can go out and haul your deer back without a heart attack. It's like, and these animals are like 150 or 200 pounds sometimes. They're heavy. It's like piggybacking with an adult person on your back. So yeah, the Rambo. And then on the opposite end of that, where we're seeing electric vehicle movement going, is the fanciest cars. All of the fanciest car manufacturers have moved to electric. So we're talking about the fanciest fast cars, because the electric cars are going faster than gas cars can go now, as well as the ultra luxury. Like, maybe you'd like to have a chauffeured experience where there isn't someone up front that's watching you and hanging out with you. Maybe it'd be pleasant to have nobody driving up front, like this Rolls Royce, which also has luggage racks. You can push a little button, out comes your personalized baby blue luggage that goes with the vehicle. So this is a sweet Rolls Royce with an AI chauffeur. And everyone always asks, I have no idea how to go on a bumpy road. Maybe this thing has hydraulics or something? I don't know. Maybe there's no such thing as bumpy roads when you're that rich. Here's another fun one. So the silent yachts, they started with Silent 60, Silent 80, Silent 100. Now they're at Silent 120 with a helicopter pad. And they've partnered up with an electric helicopter company and an electric submarine company. So this is no fossil fuels. It runs on solar panels, all those arrays. It can go about 50 miles a day forever, off its solar panels silently. Once again, it's like luxury, silent. Has a hot tub on it, 4 to 6 cabins, induction kitchen, stateroom, views, movie theater outside, the whole bit, helicopter pad. And this is what is for sale now, and has been for sale for years now, just to understand like how thoroughly electric luxury has penetrated places where there's money to spend for the cutting edge. I just want to show you what the submarine looks like that comes with the Silent 120. So it's seat for 2, and you can go down and pick up your champagne bottles, for your little adventure when you're out on your silent yacht. The company is U-Boat Works, by the way, if you're interested in looking them up, U-Boat Works. Another version of luxury is being warm in the wintertime outside. So this is a fun one. People sometimes wonder if outside swimming pools, would be challenged by heat pumps. No, heck no. This is an example from like 12 years ago. And they have 3 heated pools in the summer and 2 hot tubs. And in the wintertime, this ski resort and golf resort reduces it down to 1 heated swimming pool outside and 2 hot tubs. So just a little less. And the same heat pumps do all the work. So in the summertime, they heat all of that water. In the wintertime, because it's just so much money being spent, basically, they just reduce the number of pools they keep hot outside. But yeah, no problem. Air source heat pumps heat the swimming pool. A water source heat pump pulls heat from the swimming pool to make it hot tub temperature. That's all balanced in the design, so everything is warm and wonderful. And it cut the bills in half. That's important. It's like there's little YouTube videos where the maintenance guy is being interviewed, and he's just like, yeah, it works great, cut the bills in half. If you are building a new building, bigger things here, just want to show you that construction equipment has gone electric worldwide, and it is making its way slowly, unfortunately, in the United States, because it's Europe that has been regulating city noise and city pollution for much longer than America has. And so all these electric machines are way quieter, and they don't cause nearly as much pollution, and allows extended work hours. You can work all night with some of these machines because they make no noise. And usually you're restricted to like 7 a.m. to dusk for construction hours, so you don't piss off all the neighbors. But this is making it so construction can happen in the night. So big profit center, honestly, being able to continually work, and they have much less maintenance. Oh, some of the dirtiest things we do is ship things from China. The bunker fuel that's used for those cross-Atlantic, cross-Pacific boats are just the dirtiest, filthiest fuel. So putting up sails again, these are mechanical sails. There's already barges that are using retrofitted mechanical sails, but Oceanbird is coming out with a barge that's got them built in on purpose. Like that's the design. So next year. And these sails can offset about 90% of the demand for fossil fuels. Not completely, but 90% would be huge compared to what's going on right now. So definitely worth, like, we should be regulating the Oakland and the Long Beach ports. Like we own those as a state, and often as county governments. And we could be saying like, hey, if you're gonna dock in here by this year, you need to have a certain amount of sails on your boat, that kind of thing. This is within California's legal jurisdiction for us to start pushing for. helping companies that are innovating. Similarly, counties always own the airports, and so Norway is an example. They have banned by 2035 flights that aren't electric airplanes of less than like 300 miles. And there's so many electric airplanes that are being made right now that they are like, we're not worried about that. Or just this summer, France banned airplane flights of less than 2.5 hours because the French are so pissed about rich people flying their private planes all over to tennis courts and things like that, like real protests in public. And the response was like, all right, no more private planes. You have to take the train from these cities to these cities, unless you have electric planes. So once again, we're seeing regulations in leadership countries in Europe using their ability to say who gets to land at our airport to force the industry to change to electric airplanes. And Airbus has 3 different airplanes ready for 2035. So we could set policies today that say, by 2035, use these airplanes. And that would really help these businesses who are, putting out capital. So that is the end of my presentation. And I think that there's Larry, right? And if you guys have any questions, now is the right time.